First meeting of the new year. Hope you've all had a nice year so far, all 12 days of it, whatever. We'd like to go ahead and call our meeting to order here at 6:01. Kate, if you could take roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. President, Mr. Nielsen,
Here.
Mrs. Contreras,
Here.
Mr. Rader,
Here.
Mrs. Reyes,
Here.
Mrs. Sashanek.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. If we could all stand or look forward for the Pledge of Allegiance. Go ahead and take care of that at the present time. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
nation,
nation, under
God,
indivisible, with
liberty
liberty
and
and justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Thank you so much. Now, if we could have just a moment of silence here and just ask that we might be blessed this evening as we make decisions for our kids, that we might be able to do that, which would be right to help them. All right. Do any of the members of the board have a statement that they would like to share with us tonight?
I do not.
If not, Dr. Freeman, Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. Good evening, everybody. Feliz Años Nuevo and Happy New Year. We're eager to welcome 2021 in part because COVID vaccinations are rolling out this month. And we're more hopeful now that we can glimpse light at the end of the tunnel. So much so that we're optimistic about being able to return to somewhat normal activities sometime later this year. Vaccination appointments for K-12 education staff and daycare staff across the state opened just yesterday. Appointments are also available for law enforcement, protective service workers, as well as people age 75 and older, and they seem to be filling fast. With the 24, there's 5 pods or points of dispensing with more to come, and the 24/7 State Farm Stadium location starting yesterday. Those eligible who want to schedule an appointment can visit the Maricopa County Public Health COVID-19 vaccine webpage. And a lot of us are already signed up, and it's taking maybe a week or so to get appointments unless you want to go at 4 in the morning. I heard there's a lot of openings like at 3 or 4 in the morning. Schools in Arizona and across the nation have had their enrollments impacted by the pandemic, and we're also seeing declining numbers in Littleton. This month, we're running somewhat below 5,700 students, and this time last year, we were near the 6,300 mark. We want to remind our community and families about the importance of ongoing education opportunities, even if they aren't everything people would hope for. The number of online students in Arizona has doubled this year, and kindergarten numbers across the state have been significantly lower. So please enroll your little ones and pass the word that kindergarten roundup for next year kicks off February 15th. Anyone can call our Family Welcome Center to make an appointment for enrollment. We think enrollment will finally start to rebound when we're able to get back to in-person learning in our schools. For families new to our area, I invite them to consider that our schools offer 6 academies, each with a different focus, so students begin to hone their interests and passions into planning for a rewarding life and career. In addition, because some families have reported they would like their students to remain learning from home, the Littleton District's been approved to provide an online academy that will remain open year-round. Collier Elementary is working on developing a new focus for the coming school year. Their ideas are going to be shared with our board and community at our next regular meeting of the board. I encourage all of our families to be on the lookout for information coming on our annual School of Choice events this February, which will be, of course, held digitally this year. Start of the new year also means new board member terms. We're grateful to have Ms. Reyes and Mr. Rader returning to the board, and to be able to welcome Ms. Sarah Contreras to the dais. Ms. Contreras is a parent of students at Quinton Academy and a school teacher. She serves as department chair for special services at Sierra Linda High School and Tolleson Union High School District. Being an educator herself, her goal is to advocate for students, parents, teachers, and staff with the Littleton community using her experiences and her professional knowledge. She believes strongly in public education and the importance of providing opportunities for overall educational success. We look forward to her contributions and hope you'll all join me in welcoming her. During the month of December, several of our Littleton school communities participated in food, clothing, and other fundraising events to show support for those in need. Collier reached out to the community and staff to partake in their first annual sock drive. Parents and staff dropped off a pair or a package of socks to give the gift of warm and cozy feet during the winter season. Collier staff also joined the district office staff for their annual Santa for Seniors event that was sponsored by our cheer committee, and they fulfilled Christmas wishes for 24 of Avondale seniors at the Senior Village. Estrella Vista continued their annual gift card drive, and families were so appreciative and grateful for the additional help this year. Tres Rios NJHS teamed up with nonprofit Valor Bells to collect needed items for veterans at the Arizona State Veterans Home. They were able to donate puzzles, decks of cards, board games, variety of clothing, a large bin of toiletries, and Valor Bells thanked the Tres Rios NJHS for their compassion to help veterans live more comfortable lives. The Superintendent's Youth Council is a leadership program and a forum for direct communication between our district students and the superintendent. As SYC members, students share their voices on a variety of topics and work to create solutions for select issues that are important to students in the district and increase their leadership skills. Members from each school shared their thoughts on our dynamic distance learning model, the value of their social emotional learning time, how student agencies impacted their learning activities in their school focus, and the ways their schools are engaging families in the community. On a more personal note, I would like to say that they provided some pretty honest feedback about the current state of affairs and its impact on their learning, while at the same time being very respectful and well-spoken. Interacting with these students makes you feel hopeful about the future of the next generation. Our Family Engagement Committee has been meeting monthly to analyze our involvement and outreach efforts. This group includes representatives from school campuses and the district office, and they've worked to develop an inventory of current efforts and have aligned those to our district goals. They look forward to examining which strategies are more effective and exploring ways to support and engage families and enhance community relationships. I'm pleased to report that Louis Tapia, a 6th grade student from Tres Rios Service Academy, was selected from thousands of students as the Arizona first prize winner in the Make the Break contest last month. Achieve 3000, the providers of a literacy development program used by our students, created the challenge as an incentive for students to complete lessons during winter break. So he will be receiving a pair of Skull Candy headphones. I don't know what those are, but I'm guessing they're really good kind. Congratulations to Lewis and his teacher, Miss Luna. Littleton STEM Academy Focus Committee collaborated before the winter break with our West MEC partners, the CTED staff, and NAMFAM, Tech Apprentice Manager with the Greater Phoenix Foundation, to introduce students and families to the joys of coding. Students listened to a message, and she responded to student and family questions at the end of the night about coding careers and opportunities. Avondale City Council is beginning to recognize students who have been nominated for their character and achievement. We're excited to announce that the January City Council meeting next Tuesday will recognize Kenny Williams. He's a 6th grader at Littleton STEM Academy. The meeting will be held virtually, and Kenny's family, teachers, administrators have been invited to celebrate his recognition. Congratulations to Kenny and his family, and Ms. Sigerman, his teacher. We're very proud of you, and the link to that meeting is available on the City of Avondale's webpage. It's also nice to have positive events like these when there's been so much turmoil and controversy at the state and national levels. And the challenges of 2020 were greater than just the pandemic because of the politics interwoven and all the other inequities in our society. These factors, the K-12 public advocates, let's see, fractions becoming more polarized all the time, excuse me. The K-12 public school advocates are bracing for a difficult legislative session ahead because of the partisanship and expressed resentment over the passage of the Citizens Initiative tax increase. Prop 208 funds probably won't all be collected until next April. So it's still 16 months away. But people are feeling the tension. Education organizations had strong responses to the governor's State of the State address yesterday, causing a spokesperson to offer further clarification that Governor Ducey supports virtual options for those parents who want them. And he's not considering cutting funding for virtual students when he refers to empty seats. He simply means for parents who have chosen a new option for their kids, that the money will follow the students to their new public school setting. We'll know more about what the governor actually plans for K-12 schools when his budget is released Friday. I don't have a legislative update in the agenda this evening because the session just got underway. I can tell you this session, both the House and Senate Education Committees are meeting every Tuesday at 2 p.m. So advocates will have a hard time working bills in two places at once. There's a set of companion bills that were scheduled to be heard in each chamber today, prohibiting anyone with suspended or surrendered fingerprint cards from being employed. That was Senate Bill 1061 and House Bill 2023. Those passed out of both chambers. The House was busy today with bills that were all sponsored by the chair, Ms. Udall. They were on schools audits, financial records, CTEDs, and boards and elections, child care, reduced fees, college course credits, and dual enrollment, school resources, services, and consolidation grants, as well as CTED internships. And those all passed out of the House today. So the House side of the mall was very busy. The biggest issue, of course, will be the budget. State revenues exceeded expectations, creating a surplus for this year. And the state has $1 billion in its rainy day fund. So K-12 advocates believe those monies should go to establishing reliable, sustainable school funding, and that COVID relief funding should do just that, cover the increased costs due to the pandemic, not to supplant cuts from the state. There will be more to report at future meetings, Mr. President, but for now, that's all I have this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Freeman. Appreciate that update. We now have an opportunity to read a proclamation of school choice. I can go ahead and do that. Whereas Littleton children should have access to the highest quality education possible. Whereas Littleton recognizes the important role that an effective education plays in preparing all students to be successful adults. Whereas Littleton is a district of choice in the West Valley, allowing students to enjoy multiple program choices based on individual interests. Whereas educational variety not only helps to diversify our economy, but also enhances the vibrancy of our community. Whereas Littleton has many high-quality teaching professionals who are committed to educating our children. Whereas School Choice Week is celebrated across the country by millions of students, parents, educators, schools, and organizations to raise awareness of the need for effective educational options that challenge and motivate our students to succeed. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that as the governing board of the Littleton Elementary School District, we proclaim that our schools will stand with the nation in recognizing February 16th through February 19th, 2021 as School Choice Week. Now therefore, the governing board of the Littleton Elementary School District do hereby proclaim February 16th through February 19th, 2021 as School Choice Week. Thank you. All right. Ms. Vanderwater, are you there somewhere?
Good evening, President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman. I'm excited to present to you our program showcase for this evening. Tonight, Country Place Leadership Academy will showcase their leadership focus. Members of the Lighthouse team will share insights about leadership, and sixth grade students will showcase their wildly important goal-setting process. Goal setting is a powerful behavior that yields results. We see students as young as 5 years old goal setting and achieving goals in literacy, math, attendance, behavior, and leadership. When we teach students to set wildly important goals, we are teaching them that there are a vital few goals that must be accomplished in order to be successful. A wildly important goal is expressed in a statement that is specific, measurable, and time-bound. For example, learn all my multiplication facts from 3s through 6s by December 15th. Having a specific goal helps students see where they need to be and by when. With us this evening is Principal Dr. Michael Cagle to share more about Country Place Leadership Academy's Leader in Me goal-setting process. Dr. Cagle.
Thank you, Ms. Vanderwater. Good evening, President Nielsen, members of the board. Thanks for giving us the opportunity to share a little bit of the exciting things going on at Country Place Leadership Academy. So we have some incredible leaders that are going to share with you some leadership insights. Right now, in challenging times, leadership is needed more now than ever. And as Dr. Freeman says, the interactions with our students really is a hopeful opportunity for all of us. You're going to hear some students talk about what the Lighthouse team is. We have a Lighthouse leadership team that consists of staff and students, and they're going to talk a little bit about why they wanted to join. You'll also hear from some students which of the 7 habits is most impactful for them. And as Ms. Vanderwater said, you'll hear a WIG setting session or wildly important goal setting session with one of our 6th graders, and he's getting some feedback from some of his classmates. You'll also hear a student recognizing a community leader, and you'll see the impact of that recognition. And last, but certainly not least, an amazing leadership message from one of our Lighthouse team members. So I hope you enjoy. We certainly enjoyed watching all of the footage that we got from our students. So
is considered to try and guide the sailors back to shore. And what we try, and that is basically what we try and do with the 7 habits. We try and help others find their way to shore with the 7 habits while using them in their daily lives, and how we can try and make them see that there are so many things that go on in their lives, and it could be the smallest thing and you're doing a habit. So Student Lighthouse thing is many things, but it is a place where you try and help people get to shore. Yeah, that is what the Student Lighthouse team is. It's action teams, and it's why the habit is so important to us. And it's a community of leaders and students and teachers combined.
Hi, my name is Giselle, and the reason I want to be part of Lighthouse is because I want to be more of a proactive leader and help others achieve their goals. I want to collaborate and share my ideas with others.
Hello, my name is Ivan. I wanted to join Lighthouse because it's going to help me find my voice more, and I'm really proactive. I stay positive when I have to talk to people, and I stay positive doing my work.
I joined the Lighthouse team because I wanted to help other students and I wanted to help students achieve their goals, and I wanted to I wanted to be part of it because I wanted to show anybody that anybody could be a leader, and it is awesome.
Is habit 3, put first things first. It is because you need to put your work first before you go do your before you go play outside or play video games, because your work is way more important than video games.
I think habit 2 is for me because it's about achieving your goals and like having a plan. So like you think ahead. So if you think it, and you will always achieve it.
Okay, Angel.
Okay, so my end in mind is to show growth on my quarter math interim. So I want to stay in 100% of seats by the quarter 3 interim. So my action steps are some extra practice on Khan Academy for 60 minutes, 1 time per week, and practice on Dreambots for 50 minutes, 4 times each week. So this goal is important to me because I could stay on the highest score, and also because I know I can get that score by working hard each day.
Okay, guys, so what do you notice about Angel's wig? What do you want to ask him? Go ahead. You guys don't stay on mute, okay? I'm going to try to stay on mute just for...
I have a question. How do you plan to keep reminding yourself to do it 4 times a week for 2 minutes?
So I'm planning it could be from 6 p.m. So I'm gonna be doing Dreambots. Go into my laptop and stay 15 minutes on Dreambots, do as many lessons as I can, and trying to learn something new.
Okay, awesome, Angel. And this goal is important to you, I see, because you want to make sure you get that score again. Why is it important to you to get that score?
Because that shows I have been paying attention in class, and also that I have been completing my work.
Okay, cool. So this week, then, would you put a plus? Have you been doing that? Or would you have a delta? Have you been meeting your action steps so far this week?
I will put a delta on Khan Academy.
And then a plus for Dreambox?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're drawing.
I learned that Adriel could be a leader.
And how did you learn that Adriel can be a leader?
Because when we were in math the next day, he was doing a good job, and we could get a good star.
And he helped us earn a gold star?
Yeah.
Very nice. I love it. I love how encouraging you were to Adriel, friend. Adriel, how does that make you feel?
Happy and thankful.
Happy and thankful. I love it. Very nice, friends. I love seeing you guys learn and encourage.
Be kind and help other people, and be nice and be a leader. Bye.
So I want to say a special thanks to Mrs. Pomeroy and Miss Ayers for sharing some of the clips from their classroom. And I don't know if you guys noticed what that young man's celebration was when he made his goal: eating cake. So that's going to be his celebration. So we're really excited about the work that's going on with our students and our teachers. They're working really hard in this crazy time and in this crazy format, and we've really learned a lot, and our students are really incredible. So good messages and things. It was really powerful listening to students talk, and I learned a lot from them and had a lot of really good reminders. And Angie's description of the Lighthouse team and getting people to shore was pretty profound, and that's pretty profound. So thank you for the opportunity to share a little bit of our genius here at Country Place, and we look forward to more in the future. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions from any member of the board?
No, thank you.
Very well done.
Thank you, Dr. Cagle.
Good evening.
All right, that will take care of the showcase for now. Call to public. We had any of those? None of those. May I have a motion? Is there any of the members of the board that would like to pull any of the items from the consent agenda?
No, I would not.
If there's not, can I have a motion to go ahead and accept those as they are written?
This is Amy, and I move that we approve the consent agenda as stated.
Thank you, Amy.
This is Kathy. I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You want a roll call?
Up to you, Mr. President.
Aye.
Okay. Mrs. Contreras?
Aye.
Mr. Rader?
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes?
Aye.
Mrs. Soshanek?
Aye.
Thank you so much. Move on to the next item, Dr. Freeman, reorganization of the governing board.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. Each year in January, the board has an opportunity to designate some leadership for the coming calendar year. The elected offices are on calendar years, not school years. So tradition has it that the board elects a presiding officer, and that runs through next December, and then the question will come up again next January. The board can elect other offices if it wishes, but it is required to have at least a presiding officer. So I don't know how much discussion the board wants to have. If you want to continue as president, Mr. Nielsen, or if somebody else would like to have that opportunity, we just need a motion and a second to move forward.
Well, I have no problem. If you want to trust me again for another year of conducting and moving forward, I would be more than happy to do that.
I think everybody else has a full-time job, so
This is Kathy. If Mr. Nielsen is ready to accept it again, I would definitely make that nomination.
Thank you.
And this is Amy, and I would second.
Thank you so much. I'll try to take care of us all.
All right, Mr.
It's a motion. Can we go ahead and do roll call there, please?
Mr. Nielsen?
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras?
Aye.
Mr. Rader?
Yes.
Mrs. Reyes?
Yes.
Mrs. Soshanek?
Aye.
Thanks.
Do we need to have a vice president or anything like that, Dr. Freeman, or just?
You can elect someone to serve in your stead, so that you not be able to attend a meeting. The board can elect at the meeting who they want to have preside. Usually, if you have another officer, probably the main thing they're going to do is fill in the absence of the president. So if you want to have a vice president or a clerk or something like that, that eliminates debate down the road. On the board currently, Mr. Rader's previously served as a presiding officer, Ms. Sosnick and Ms. Reyes. So you have, I think, plenty of experience and talent on the board if anybody wants to either step up at the time or volunteer now to help fill in your absence.
Thank you. With all the experience that we have here, I don't plan on being absent from too many of these, but I think Dr. Freeman's suggestion of calling upon one of you to put your leadership efforts together, your lighthouse team, whatever it might be, I think we've got that. And I'm not going to worry about coming up with a vice president or secretary at this particular time, if that's all right with the rest of you.
Sounds good. This is Kathy. I agree with that.
Thank you, Kathy. Item number 11, Ms. Vanderwater, update on the IAEP plan.
President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, council and community. This evening, I will be providing you with a mid-year update for all 7 of our schools' integrated action plans. As an organization, we must have goals, take action to achieve those goals, gather evidence of achievement, study and reflect on the data, and from that, take action again. Our schools are in a continuous feedback cycle toward this iterative process that unfolds progressively and is sustained over time. The concept of continuous improvement also recognizes that improving school effectiveness is not only highly complex, but it entails unforeseen challenges and complications that require a sustained commitment to ongoing improvement efforts. Major components of continuous school improvement encompass creating, reviewing, or revising the school's vision, setting goals, selecting strategies, implementing the action steps, and gathering data to measure the impact. The improvement cycle includes ongoing data collection that helps educators monitor progress and adjust in real time. Over the past several months, our leaders and educators have been working toward achieving the goals that they created using evidence-based action steps, monitoring those action steps, measures of success criteria and evidence, and using the data available to inform current and future practice. During this mid-year review, I want to commend and recognize our leaders and educators for their work on continuous improvement during these challenging times. Leaders and educators have continued to set goals, provide quality instruction and assessment, monitor the goals through data protocol and a problem-solving approach, and collaborate around planning and preparation, interventions, and extensions to meet each student at their level of need. During dynamic distance learning, we have observed these steps in action, and we continue to work hard as a collective team toward increasing student achievement and teacher efficacy on the goals being shared with you this evening. For tonight's presentation, I will, in partnership with a pre-recorded session with each principal, share the 2 goals from each of our 7 schools that principals presented to the governing board in each of their integrated action plan sessions. We will provide a review of each of the 2 goals, if the school is below track, on track, or above track during this mid-year point, and a few steps that the school will continue to take to reach the intended outcome. We will begin with a video this evening, hearing from Principal DeLessio from Collier Elementary School.
Good evening, Governing Board President, Governing Board members, Dr. Freeman. I'd like to thank you for allowing Collier to share their mid-year goals from the Integrated Action Plan. As you know, we have 2 goals. The first one is to increase 8% of proficiency from 2019 to 2021 on ASEM 2. We are tracking that this year by our quarterly interims, and so far we've shown a 3% increase from last year to this year in proficiency. We have also tracked our common formative assessments that our teachers have identified the essential standards, and we have assessed 21 out of 42 of those, so 50%, so we're right on track at mid-year. For goal number 2 is to increase the percent of parents participating in goal-oriented activities that support student learning. We have determined the key data points for reading indicators for each grade level. Our teachers are currently working with students to track their goals, set those goals, and as we meet them, create new goals. And then we're also sharing with parents what those key data points mean, what the data is, and how parents can help their child at home in those areas of reading. So we will take a survey at the end of the year to track that progress with our parents. So thank you for allowing us to share, and we look forward to tracking this progress as the year continues. Thank you.
If you don't mind putting up the slide with Collier's 2 goals from the PowerPoint. Excellent. As Principal D'Alessio expressed, the school is on track to reach their ELA goal for 3rd through 8th grade students for the summative AZM2 as measured mid-year by progress on formative assessments, interim assessments, as well as Achieve 3000 Lexile levels. Their scores mid-year this year are higher than averages from last year, and they will continue to unpack essential skills and provide interventions to students. Collier will continue to utilize Achieve 3000, an online reading intervention tool used with 3rd through 8th grade students working on reaching the goal of completing 40 activities with an average score of 75% or higher on their first attempt. Currently, the average Lexile score increase is 30 points. That shows that students are on track to being on grade level with their Lexile by the end of this school year. As mentioned by Mr. D'Alessio, the second goal of working with families on student agency goals in the area of literacy and providing parents with tools to assist their children in the home will continue to be enhanced second semester. There was not a mid-year survey provided to families for feedback on these activities already provided, so it appears from the beginning of the year survey that they are not on track to meet their goal. Collier staff will continue to provide virtual parent trainings, communications, resources, and opportunities to engage in reviewing student goals and assisting in monitoring literacy within the home, and an end of this year survey will be provided to track their progress. We will now move on with a video hearing from Dr. Cagle, principal from Country Place Leadership Academy.
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to share with you an update on our goals here at Country Place Leadership Academy. Our first goal centers around the idea of growth mindset. We want our students to understand that their intelligence can change based on their choices. That by participating in rigorous and challenging learning activities, they can make their brain grow. We're going to continue this work in January and February by sharing brain research and doing activities around this idea. We know this is a powerful idea that can help our students not only now, but into their future. Our second goal centers around mathematics. We'd like to see an increase in our proficiency rates on the AZM2 assessment at the end of the school year. Our teachers have been collaborating and working to improve their teamwork and their collaboration skills. They've been looking at essential standards, using common formative assessments to see how students are learning, and then providing support where needed. We're also excited about the creation of a math school improvement team. We have a group of teachers and staff that have come together, and they're going to facilitate the improvement in mathematics on our campus. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a great evening.
As the Leader in Me school, Country Place focuses on developing growth mindset in students. Each year, they administer the Measurable Results Assessment, which measures leadership, culture, and academics. This year, the staff identified a key behavioral change required for improvement on the MRA was to focus on growth mindset. When students believe they can get smarter, they understand that effort makes them stronger. Therefore, they put in extra time and effort, and that leads to higher achievement. Results from a baseline mid-year survey reflect that approximately half of the students believe that mindset is not fixed. There will be a heavy emphasis on this during the months of January and February with the student population. Country Place is also on track to meeting their math achievement goal as measured by the summative AZM2 assessment for 3rd through 8th grade students. There is evidence of growth from last year to this year on the interim assessment. Dreambox is an adaptive online math program allowing students to practice and learn from their mistakes. On average, if a student completes 5 or more lessons per week with accuracy, they will achieve 1 year's growth on grade level math. Mid-year reflections from Country Place show that students have already grown 0.15 grade levels from the beginning of the year. They are on track to reaching 1 year's growth by the end of the year, and that will assist them with their summative state assessment performance. We will now move on with a video hearing from Dr. Durazo, principal at Estrella Vista STEM Academy.
Good evening, President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, and executive team. I am pleased to provide you with an update on EV's progress towards our integrated action plan goals. Our first goal focused on our STEM engineering vision for learning. Our science leadership team created our vision statement, and we have asked for input from our certified staff. Our next steps will be to involve our classified staff and our parents for their feedback and support with our new STEM engineering vision for learning. Our second goal is to increase parent and community participation by 20%. Our evidence of progress includes increased participation in our PTSA meetings, increased participation with fall and parent-teacher conferences, and a high turnout for our Title I Family Night. We will continue to focus on parent and community participation through the use of our social media, our virtual Student of the Month assemblies, virtual Spirit Weeks, family engagement nights, and our first virtual STEM engineering showcase. Thank you for the time to share with you our progress towards our goals, and thank you for your continued support with our Kids at Hope engineers at EV.
Estrella Vista is on track with both of their shared goals. FY20 end of the year survey data suggested that 50% of the student and staff population felt the need for the school community to develop and enrich their engineering STEM vision focus. Mid-year, the school is on track with the collaboration, research, and development of a STEM engineering vision, and various stakeholder groups have and will continue to have the opportunity to contribute. The goal of increasing family engagement is on track since the staff has seen an increase from the end of year last year to this mid-year point, with several events and opportunities ranging from PTSA, conferences, Title I nights, and STEM showcase events. The school will continue to plan events and engage families and conduct an end-of-year survey. We will now move on with a video hearing from Mr. Blanton, principal of the Fine Arts Academy.
Good evening, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, members of the executive team, and the Littleton community. I am pleased to have this opportunity to share with you the progress we have made towards the ELA and math goals that our staff and community stakeholders developed collaboratively as part of the 2020-2021 Integrated Action Plan. Despite the obstacles that come with teaching and learning during a pandemic, we are pleased to share with you the growth that we have made towards these improvement goals. Our first goal is to increase the percentage of students who meet or exceed the standards in math by 10% as measured by the district pre- and post-math assessments. As of today, the percentage of students meeting or exceeding the standards as measured by the second quarter math benchmark has increased in 4 of our grade levels when compared to the results from the same test that was taken at this time last year. I anticipate that we will continue to make growth towards our target by continuing to focus instruction and targeted interventions and enrichment around the priority standards that we identified for this year. Our second IAP growth goal is to increase the percentage of students who meet or exceed the standards in ELA by 10% as measured by the district pre and post ELA assessments. As of today, the percentage of students meeting or exceeding the standards in ELA as measured by the second quarter benchmark has increased in 7 out of the 8 grade levels as compared to last year's results on the same test. To achieve our goal in ELA, we will continue to focus instruction and targeted reteach and enrich around the prioritized standards. In closing, I want to thank you for this opportunity to share our growth with you and for your support in our endeavor to set and work towards rigorous academic goals in these challenging times. Thank you very much.
Fine Arts staff has been working very hard on both their ELA and math growth goals and are showing in their current data positive growth trends as measured by the interim assessments, common formative assessments, Acadience assessment, and Dreambox math intervention resource tool. There has been an increased commitment to collaborating as grade level teams on unpacking essential standards, building common formative assessments aligned to those standards, analyzing the data on a weekly basis, and then providing interventions to those students with identified learning gaps. This rigorous work will continue second semester toward their continuous improvement goals. We will now move on with a video hearing from Mr. Atu Haney, Principal, Littleton STEM Academy.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Freeman, executive team. I'm pleased to share with you an update in regard to our integrated action plan for Littleton STEM Academy. Goal number 1 talks about how we want to improve or increase our interim assessment scores by 10%. And the 2 things that we are proud to say that we're doing on a consistent basis is, number 1, we have a professional learning community rubric that we use to provide targeted, timely feedback to our teacher teams, which supports effectiveness and efficiency in the functioning of our professional learning communities. And then evidence number 2, our teacher teams give weekly common formative assessments that are between 3 and 5 questions. It informs our teachers of student learning, but it also informs them of teaching impact. So that information and that data is what they use to inform of next steps. Goal number 2 talks about how we want to increase our teacher retention from 80% to 90%. And the 2 things that we've implemented consistently across our school are, number 1, planning meetings. So we have our planning meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays during their preparation time. These are facilitated by our teacher leaders, and it gives teachers an opportunity to plan and prepare for high quality instruction in the classroom. And then secondly is our professional learning communities. We've implemented that consistently throughout our school, all teacher teams, 75 minutes every Wednesday. Teachers have the opportunity to collaborate around specifically 2 items, student learning and student results. I want to thank you for your time and your continued support.
As you heard from Mr. Atu Haney, the staff at Littleton has been working in their professional learning communities to design and execute common formative assessments on a daily and/or a weekly basis around targeted skills in both ELA and math. The goal of formative assessment is to monitor student learning to provide ongoing feedback that can be used by educators to improve their teaching and by students to improve their learning. More specifically, formative assessments help students identify their strengths and weaknesses and targeted areas that need work. The staff will engage in deeper problem solving around those data points during PLCs to improve the slightly below track data for ELA and continue to grow in the area of math. As you can see with the second goal of differentiated professional support, and professional development, staff are reporting on the My Learning Plan surveys that they are satisfied and able to apply new learning directly to the classroom of practice, which will also assist in the targeted ELA and math growth goals. We will now move on with a video hearing from Dr. Fife, principal of the Quinton STEM Academy.
Good evening, President Nielsen, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Freeman, and members of the Littleton community. Thank you for the opportunity to share a brief update on Quinton STEM Academy's Integrated Action Plan progress for this school year. The first goal I would like to provide an update on is, during the 2020-2021 school year, Quinton STEM Academy teachers will score at the effective, highly effective levels in the areas of demonstrating knowledge of content and pedagogy and designing coherent instruction on the Littleton observation rubric to support high levels of student achievement as measured by informal and formal assessments. We are well on our way to meet this goal. As of today, all teachers have had one formal classroom observation. Data from those observations show that 97% of teachers were either effective or highly effective in designing coherent instruction. Additionally, agendas from our teachers' weekly professional learning community meetings indicate staff is sharing their knowledge of content and strategies they have used during instruction that have led to greater student academic achievement. Moving into the new year, we are continuing to support our teachers with knowledge on the most effective strategies and on designing coherent instruction through continued professional development. Our second goal is, by May 2021, Quinton STEM Academy will reduce the number of Step 4 parent-teacher conferences by at least 15% as measured by the number of behavioral conference requests submitted by teachers. Student behavior during the first semester has been exceptional. Though we are currently in a virtual learning environment, students and teachers have worked to develop strong, authentic relationships that have supported positive student conduct. Currently, there have been only 15 instances involving student behavior that have required administrative involvement, indicating that we are on track to achieve this goal. Teachers are using their daily morning meeting time to strengthen the classroom and school community through authentic activities using platforms like Nearpod and Google Forms. Students are also continually working with their teachers to increase their decision-making and self-management skills through reflections and revisions of their individual goals. As we enter our second semester, we are continuing to provide teachers with the opportunity to maintain and fortify their relationships with students during morning meetings and provide new and unique brain breaks that they can use throughout the school day. Opportunity to provide an update on our goals at Quinton STEM Academy.
Quinton has placed a heavy emphasis on the goal of improving quality tiered instruction in the two areas mentioned by Dr. Fife, as measured on the Charlotte Danielson framework for teaching that we utilize in Littleton to observe teachers' instruction in the classroom. The framework for teaching identifies those aspects of a teacher's responsibilities that have been documented through empirical studies and research as promoted as improved student learning. Although not the only possible description of practice, these responsibilities seek to define what teachers should know and be able to do as they exercise teaching in their profession. It is excellent to see the evidence that this focus has Quinton teachers above track with their first goal. Since the second goal of reducing the number of Step 4 conferences does not have the relevance quite exactly due to dynamic distance learning, you heard Dr. Fife describe how the staff are leveraging the opportunity to focus on strengthening authentic relationships with students through agency, reflecting conferences with students, brain breaks, and morning meetings. It will be interesting to see if the impact of this work transfers to in-person learning and the need for Step 4 conferences to decline. Lastly, we will hear from Mr. Rickert, Principal, Tres Rios Service Learning Academy.
Good evening, members of the Governing Board, Dr. Freeman, and the E-Team. It is my privilege to share with you tonight an update on the progress we have made towards our IAP goals for the 2020-2021 school year. Our first goal is that by May 2021, we will increase family and community engagement in meaningful opportunities that support student learning by 20%, as evidenced by participation at academically focused school events. I am proud to report that we are well on our way, as our participation rates are already at 72% of our overall goal. I anticipate that we will meet our target as we continue to pursue new avenues to involve our families and give them voice over the engagement opportunities we offer. Our second goal is that all students will monitor their learning through goal setting, progress tracking, and conferences with their teachers in order to achieve our school-wide growth goal of an average of 80% or higher, as evidenced by our math intervention, Dreambox. Data at the end of the second quarter indicates that we have achieved an average school-wide growth of 37%, which is just over 2% growth per week. Evidence has shown that there is strong correlation between the goal of 5 activities per week and increased student growth. We will continue to be deliberate in our action steps to increase student usage in order to maintain or increase our growth rate. And for this reason, I anticipate that we will achieve this goal. I want to thank you for the opportunity to share tonight and for all your support in helping us make these goals a reality.
Trace Rio staff is on track with their family engagement goal, and they have data from the end of last year to this mid-year point that shows evidence of gain in participation. Through their efforts, the staff determined that effective family engagement contributes to improved student outcomes and to closing persistent achievement gaps among students. They will continue these efforts second semester. The staff is also showing on-track performance in the area of math with their daily efforts around utilizing the Dreambox resource. Students take an initial placement assessment when starting the program, and it adapts to their optimal learning zone. The assessment directs the child's learning path and is constantly assessing and progressing them through the zone in order to reach grade level or surpass grade level content in the area of math. Teachers utilize the Dreambox predictive insight report, and the information available provides tangible information that teachers can use to help their students make proficiency gains earlier in the learning cycle, address gaps, and puts all students on the right path for learning and achievement. In closing this evening, research on continuous improvement has shown that leaders play a crucial role in successful continuous improvement efforts. It is evident that through tonight's presentation, our building principals are those leaders successfully incorporating continuous improvement into their work. Further, stakeholder investment in continuous improvement, fostered by the inclusion of student, educator, community, and governing board input, increases the likelihood that interventions will succeed. The Littleton School leadership community appreciates the partnership with these stakeholder groups in our collective efforts to impacting teaching and learning and student achievement in the Littleton community. I'm happy to hear any comments that the governing board might have or answer any questions.
Many members of the governing board, they have a question that they'd like to put forward. Kristen?
Mr. Nielsen, this is Mr. Rader.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Vanderwater, I believe at the beginning, a couple of the principals referenced using AZM2 as a measure, and then they discussed briefly some of the assessments that they were using to come up with the measure. Can you provide a little bit additional information as to how the assessments they're using in the absence of M2 are helping them measure achievement towards this goal?
President Nielsen, Member Rader, thank you for the question. Yes, our district's pacing guides are all aligned to the standards, the concepts, the skills, and the outcomes that AZM2 measures. And so we have taken those skills and we have broken them down into segments of instruction for our teachers. We have also designed what we call interim assessments, which you heard our principals talk about. We give those interim assessments 3 times a year. And those assessments come after teachers teach a certain segment of instruction in the pacing guide, and they directly assess and are aligned to those skills. So there's teaching of concepts and then an interim assessment on those concepts that were taught. So our teachers come together in their professional learning communities to analyze that data and see which students have mastered those skills, or maybe students who might still have some gaps and need some interventions. So the pacing guide skills and standards and the interim skills and standards are all aligned to AZM2's skills and standards.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for that explanation. If I could just ask a quick follow-up to that. I'm assuming we've done this in the past. Is it fairly predictive? Are our assessments what we would see in AZM2?
President Nielsen, Member Rader, we use an assessment platform in Littleton called Illuminate. And Illuminate has a very high correspondence to predictive results on AZM2. So there's a close correlation between a student who might be earning you know, a 70% on assessments within Illuminate and their performance on the AZM2. So it's probably, I would say, you know, 90% or higher. You know, what students get on the results from our Illuminate assessments are the outcomes that they are earning on AZM2. So we're utilizing Illuminate test data bank questions for daily, weekly, common formative assessments. We're using them for our interim assessments. We're using them for our benchmark assessments. And so teachers can gauge how students are going to do on the summative AZM2 assessment.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions? I just have one here. The Trace Rios and one other referred to Dreambox. And evidently through December 17th, one of them had done 32,000 lessons, which is a lot, a lot of work. Congratulations. How many schools are actually using Dreambox at the present time? And I know we talked about in December about all schools eventually looking into that. Just give me a little update on that.
Yes, President Nielsen, thank you for that question. We are very thankful that we have Dreambox as an online program to use in the area of math. All 7 of our schools, all kindergarten through 8th grade students have access to Dreambox, and they are all actively utilizing this program.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? If there's not, we'll go ahead and move on. Dr. Freeman, resource calendar planning and information.
Thank you, Mr. President. We started introducing this to the board, I think at the last meeting, and so we added some information. And if we could pull up the graphic from the handout, I'll start by reviewing the first page. And members can see that this is the months leading up to January and February. We've gone through and tweaked this a little bit because we're on a COVID year calendar. So we are going to try to stay close to the sequence of events that we've done in the past with the governance team in preparing for the upcoming school year, but some things are going to be different. So one of the challenges is that our long-range planning did not anticipate COVID and had projections for the district to continue to grow. So as you've heard from my comments tonight, and you'll hear in the budget report later in this meeting, we've had a retraction of enrollment which has made all of that long range planning pretty challenging to continue to use. The strategy that we're using is to kind of take a hover approach and use COVID relief money to kind of maintain a status quo position, kind of right sizing into our enrollment budget for next year, and supplementing that with some grant funds, with the idea that as we return to in-person, that our growth will continue. Obviously, you can see there's a lot of construction and homes being built in the area, and that we're going to probably be back to growing sometime next year once we have more of an in-person presence. But we've, for instance, consulted with the attorney on any language that we need for revisions to contracts, had some discussions about things that need to be changed and don't want to be changed. So you can see on this chart for tonight, the January 12th meeting, some of the things that we're going to talk about. And for instance, COVID-related issues is just returning to hybrid instruction. The board will have that discussion later. We're going to spend a lot of time on district information and organization at the next meeting, partly because we have a new member on the board. Legislation update will be kind of depending on what happens down there. We have some things that will be introduced as part of that meeting cycle. So the 100th day is coming up soon. One of the things that we have to do is work with other agencies to kind of settle into that number. There are some, usually some enrollment attendance discrepancies. And one of the things we're concerned about is our 100th day will be established in a week or two. But if we return to in-person learning at the end of the year, our enrollment may go up and we may not get credit for that until we revise next year. In any case, we need to continue to work on salary schedules, work calendars, all of those other components, benefit renewals. And you can see that one of the things that we want to do is have some discussion with the board before we introduce things as action. And those are coded on that chart as D for discussion and A for action, depending on what's needed. You can see in some cases, if there's policy changes, it would depend on whether it's a first read or a second read and things like that. So we're, for instance, next month going to want to discuss implications for the org chart for next year. And then if we flip to the next page, you'll see how this works together. At the March meeting, we will be probably starting to hone in on what next year will look like. We'll go over last year's comprehensive annual financial report and auditing and legislative updates, some progress on student agency, which was a board goal. And then we're going to want to take action on contract wage statements, renewal of employee groups. We don't anticipate the need for a reduction in force because we've always had a little attrition each year. But until we get to, knowing who's coming back and who's not coming back, and the HR has a progress for finding that out from people, we won't know that. That's why that's pushed back on the calendar. We'll try to get a handle on employee compensation. What we think is there'll be 1% for inflation, according to the JLBC. That has to materialize in the legislative and budget that's passed and signed by the governor. We'll have some small increase in expenses in retirement and benefits and those kind of things that we'll have to layer in. We are going to, in the spring, you'll see the RFQ release for a general contractor. That's part of the early phase of figuring out who the contractor will be to build the school at Alomar. So the construction of Alomar would take place kind of through the middle of next year, but this spring we might need to lay the groundwork for putting all the pieces in place to get that done, and selecting a contractor is one of those. You can see that that we have that. If you look in June, it's yeah, you can see it on your screen. It's a little bit covered by my Zoom panel, but we'd be taking action on the general contractor at the June 8th meeting. We have to propose the budget for next year at the June 8th meeting. Probably it's not on this list right now, but if we were going to have a bond election, we would need to call for that in May. Staff is doing some work right now on what additional capital needs the district might have, and we'll do a community survey before bringing that back to the board for discussion. So all that work in making those lists and finding out what the different cost values are is being done behind the scenes. So the intent of this is not to be final and comprehensive, but to give members of the board a look ahead on all the things that need to be done this winter and this spring in closing up this year and in preparing for the next year. And certainly if there's questions or some things that you think we've left out, we can take those now. Otherwise, continue to work with members and the president to keep this this plan updated and current with the things that you're going to see. We don't want members to feel like there's 1-2 step surprises of things coming up on the agenda, and to understand our intent to discuss things at the meeting before we actually take action, so you have a little bit of time to digest anything that might be a change. The other challenge we have is that our operating budget is shrinking, with the exception of what we would characterize as one-time money. So we have some carry forward and we will have some grant money, but it's not long-term sustainable money. In other words, once it's spent, it's gone. It doesn't roll into a future year budget. So adding programs and anything that would be salaries would have to be something that would be phased out or be planned to be absorbed by district growth in the future. So the budget situation with COVID grant relief is more complicated than other years, where we basically we thought of capital as one-time money and operations as ongoing money. And we'll do our best to give the board an opportunity to discuss and frame what those are going to be, and how we might plan for that going forward. But that'll be a challenge that's different than prior years. So, Mr. President, I don't know if there's anything I can answer now, or we can certainly come back and have this amended as we go. It's nothing for the board to take action on. It's just the management team's effort to keep the work to be done this spring transparent and understandable to the board.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Any of you have any questions or comments? I think the only comment that I have is you can see a lot further into the future than I can. I just trying to figure out what I wanted to do for a vacation in July, and that's, will you put that on here somewhere along the line?
I can't take credit for all that work. It's a team effort. And, we're lucky to have a talented executive team and people who've, been in the district a while and, know the annual cycle of things that need to get done, but have also seen us through some ups and downs. So we don't claim to be right all the time, but we do constantly try to adjust to get the best plan forward and listen to the board our staff, our families, in putting together these recommendations. So we'll do the best we can to keep everybody informed and the best long-term decisions.
All right, thank you very much on that. If there's no other comments or questions on that, item number 13, calendar for the governing board meetings through June of 2022.
Thank you, Mr. President. Each year, what we do is we extend the calendar of governing board meetings into the future school year. So even though the board itself is on a calendar year, we kind of finish out the rest of this school year, establish the calendar of meetings for the remainder of 2021, and then look forward to the first half of the year, which is the end of the school year 2022, and put that up for your consideration. We do submit to other agencies a calendar of our meetings and meet some statutory requirements on their posting. And so we review this each time with the board. Usually we are stating some exceptions, but I think as Ms. Sillis, the board secretary, went through the instructional calendar and the second and fourth Tuesday meeting calendar, we don't have exceptions planned for this school year. Most of the time, one of the breaks, spring or fall break, tends to fall on what would typically be a board meeting day, and we have to adjust either the first or third Tuesday, and I don't think we have any of those situations this year. I'm trying to look at the item and scroll down. I think that was in the that information was in the details. So it is an action item for you to adopt that schedule, and I think we're just fortunate that it's a year when we haven't had to be able to make a lot of exceptions. It's a pretty straightforward item tonight.
All right, with that being an item for action, may I have a motion to approve that?
This is Amy, and I move that we approve the recommended 2021-2022 regular meeting dates.
Thank you.
This is Kathy. I'll second.
Thank you, Kathy.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashnik.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Freeman, you got the next couple of items here.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. This item we began adding a few years ago, a little bit at the behest of our auditors, and then in response to some Auditor General action. So what we have for this item is what we're calling a list of attestations, and there are some that are part of your own policy, some that are requested by other agencies. As members know, conflict of interest is tied back to a statute, and we're just asked that to make sure that members are aware of that, so there's no problem in the future. And there are some considerations, where people may need to make some exceptions. If there's something along those lines, we certainly would work with members needing to do that. There's not really anything that would disqualify somebody from being on the board, but may need special consideration on an item. We have board adopted ethics in section B, which is a lot of how the board conducts itself, values and behaviors, which is also signed and reviewed by all the staff, and then use of technology, because we do provide laptops and other resources for board members, access to our online systems and other network resources. So I think the main reason to do this is if you've been on the board, you're aware of all these things, but it sends a message to our public that our board is going to act in with the highest ethical standards and transparency, and that they can be assured that the leadership and the resources of their school district are, are on the up and up as they execute the duties of their office. This is not an action item. This is simply a time each year in January when we review those and collect them. I'm happy to answer any questions about the details, but I think they're pretty clear to everybody without me reading them to them. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer those for members.
Dr. Freeman, this is Kathy. Did we sign this last year? Is this a yearly document, or is this a document that stays on file?
Yeah, you did sign them last year, and so it does seem in that regard like a little bit of overkill. Like, how many years in a row should you have to do this? But I'm doing the same thing, and so is the rest of the staff. So we think that there's two things, Ms. Reyes, is that it's on the public agenda, and we're making the public aware that it's our intent to behave ethically and within the law each year. So I don't think actually if we had a conflict of interest statement with you that was 24 months old that we'd get in trouble.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Ada would have those prepared so we can sign those.
She has them all ready to go.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments on that?
Okay, this is also a item for discussion, members of the board, and what you can see the board has previously adopted is transportation corridors where we had some restrictions on how far we would transport kids, just to manage the length of bus routes and the interval of time between the start of school days in our different school settings. We have 3 start times right now, and those were adopted by the board pre-COVID. So you took action on those last spring, maybe 10 months ago, and we set instructional day and start times. And then when the governor did his executive order, he said that we had to use last year's schedule. So last year's schedule was not the same as the one you adopted last spring for this year. We're anticipating that the executive order will expire, and we'll be back to making those decisions about the length of the instructional day, early release day, and those kind of things. And so, for instance, one of the things that we did, you'll remember, is we made the lunch hour 35 minutes long when we redid the schedule. Well, then we didn't have really anybody in for lunch, except for a short time when we were on the hybrid model. So we don't right now intend to revisit early, middle, and late schools or early, middle, and late start times. But we did want to give the board an opportunity to talk about transportation restrictions. And we have an area that's north of the freeway along McDowell Road, and mostly it's apartments, and a lot of that is being developed commercial right now. So I don't know that we're going to have a lot of growth other than that strip of multifamily homes that sits between Avondale Boulevard and Friendship Park. And we had not provided transportation to Estrella Vista and Fine Arts in the past. And some of that had to do with the school being full. And we looked at where those kids were enrolled, and we had very few kids enrolled in those two schools. So what we're thinking is, because enrollment is down, that we probably don't need to have fine arts restricted from that anymore. And for area 2, which is the far south ends of the school district, which crosses the river, is we had transportation not being provided to Collier, Quinton, and Littleton. And the question we had is, if we were just going to restrict Collier, because it's a long drive from south of the river to north of the railroad tracks, or if we wanted to include the next tier of schools, which would be Littleton, Quinton, and Fine Arts. And so what that would mean really would be, two options would be to say Collier only and take Quinton and Littleton off the list, or add Fine Arts. And we had the staff go and look at how many students would be impacted by that. The answer to that currently in enrollment is 0. So by restricting all 4 of those schools, it would not impact any families currently. I don't know about the future. The idea of having that restricted to Collier only is to, create the most opportunity for families to find a signature school that they felt passionate about. But it may end up impacting our bus schedule and bus times next year. Until we start to enroll kids for fiscal 22, it's hard to tell. So we're not asking the board to take action tonight, but kind of get your feelings on opening up or restricting how far we transport kids to school from the northern and southern. We're a lot longer north and south than we are east and west. And so that's the reason for those considerations. And staff is just listening for discussion of the board on this, so that we might put together a proposal that is consistent with the needs of the community when we go to do that at a future meeting.
Any thoughts, ideas that you'd like to pass along to Dr. Freeman and the staff at this particular time? Dr. Freeman, I would just have one comment or question there. The ones that down at Alomar, down there, there's a number of houses down in there. I know some of them will be inhabited shortly if they're not already.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any idea how many kids are down there at that particular time, or will be in the 2021, 22? Yeah, I know that's really projecting out.
Yeah, they're not enrolled yet. And so, what we can track is sales, but what we do is a rough estimate of each one of those homes. One of every 3 homes will have an elementary age student. So it's a rough estimate that we use. If we look at the number of houses sold or houses on track to be sold by next September, that would give us an estimate of them. But we'll be adding those into we have actually bus routing software in addition to the software that we use to track the students on the bus. So it helps us maximize our routes. And then we also can follow the students getting off and on the bus. But, because it's really a management function, board members aren't aware that every time we have a development and a shift in ridership, our transportation people are always working to maximize bus routes and bus systems. So we do change stops and routes depending on ridership during the course of the year, just as a management function. And, we anticipate with all of the housing starts, that'll be ongoing, especially in the Alomar area where we won't have a school open for another year, but it's walking distance.
One other question I'd have is Roosevelt Park 3, which is north, Roosevelt. which is north of Van Buren. What if somebody up there wanted to go all the way down to Tres Rios? I don't know the distance in that. Is that some of the distances equivalent to what we're looking at here?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because it's north of the railroad tracks, but south of the freeway. And the way we've designed that transportation zone wasn't north of the railroad tracks. It was north of the freeway. Now, part of the reason for that is because we had a bunch of kids enrolled in our schools north of the freeway, but not a lot of enrollment between Van Buren and McDowell. Well, that's changing. So that might be a reason to change. What we might consider is that transportation zone isn't just freeway to McDowell, but is Van Buren to McDowell or something like that. I think personally right now is because enrollment's down and there's capacity in schools, it probably is a good idea for us to try to get those families into the school they want to be in until such point as the distance travel becomes prohibitive for the transportation department. And right now, they're not seeing that. But then again, those homes are selling. So it is a dynamic force. And it's another reason why we're not trying to set this in stone tonight, but give you an opportunity to discuss it. Then we'll review the data. We're going to do school choice night, give people the opportunity to select schools, reassign those kids into FY22 schools, look at the planned start times and what the implications for transportation would be. We'll do all of that work before we bring it back.
Mr. President, may I make a comment?
Please go ahead.
Just generally speaking, as part of this discussion, I'd like to see us create as few barriers as possible so that regardless of where you live in the district, you have as much choice as possible. So I think to the point that was just made, I'm not really sure the distinction from taking somebody north of McDowell Road all the way up to, or all the way south to Tres Rios, but not allowing somebody in the southern part of the district to go to Collier. So I do feel like you get into a kind of a fairness issue, and again, just reiterating, I would, if possible, and I know that creating all these bus schedules is a Herculean task, and I appreciate all the work of the staff, but if possible, trying to eliminate as many barriers as possible so that our parents truly do have a choice to send their students to whatever school fits their passion.
Yeah, we would agree with that, Mr. President. It's just a matter of limited resources sometimes, what do you pick? And just to remind members that we don't restrict any of the families from attending. We just can't necessarily always work out a bus schedule that allows us to transport everybody. So I think there are some cases where people are driving by a school on the way to work and they drive their kids anyway. And then, of course, we have a lot of walking children too.
Any other comments we can give Dr. Freeman and the staff? If not, Dr. Freeman.
Okay, this is probably the most challenging conversation of the evening is about if we're going to open up our learning models at all for next year. We have a series of dates prepared for this item, and board members I think saw on the last update that the metrics in our area were still pretty high. The positivity was just under 20%. The illnesses were just below 800 per 100,000. And there's a graph on the metrics attached at the bottom of the details. I don't know if that will help with the discussion. One of the problems we have is the metrics are 2 weeks old. We extended those graph lines by 2 weeks just by using 3 interval measures, average of 3 interval measures. So, those are not yet reported, but what is being reported is positive cases and deaths in the news every day. Maricopa County accounts for the highest number of positive cases in the state, according to the ABC News. The hot spot in the state of Arizona is our county, and there are, yesterday, I think, 6,100 new cases. The states, or Maricopa counties, had 388,000 so far, according to the Department of Health Services. Multiple schools in Arizona district had to close yesterday because of massive teacher sick out protests. I think Peoria was said to have 600 teachers call in sick, and they were having, I think, some communication issues as well as differences about in-person and remote classes, but they returned back to their models today. So I don't know if that was as much about teacher safety as it was involving their teacher community, teacher leadership, and what was going on. What we've seen in the district leading up to winter break and kind of following winter break is an average about 10 cases a week that we confirm of district staff and students. The number of exposures we've had since winter break is up compared to the last month or so. That was 22 exposures. Our high point in exposures was at the end of October. What we saw before we went back to hybrid learning was only 1 exposure the week of 10/15 to 10/21. And then when we went into hybrid learning, we had 54 and then 73 exposures. So the last week we were reporting we're at 22. It's way below a half or a third of what it was when we were meeting with some kids in person. And out of 5,700 kids, and 330 teachers, 10 cases may not seem super high. The challenge we have is when we bring everybody back, those numbers change because of the higher rate of exposure. And then I think everybody's aware of the issues with sports and sports leagues and those kind of things. So that's the internal data we have to report. The boards made the determination about when to return to hybrid learning. And, what's happening now from state and county health department officials is they're recommending that we look at, what's happening in our schools and communities to give boards some discretion about returning to hybrid or in person. The metrics would suggest that we don't. But there is a difference in how the disease impacts kids versus adults. And so I think a lot of the reason that we've stayed in remote is out of concern for the health and welfare of teachers. The other thing that we learned from being in session is most everybody behaved very well. It only took 1 or 2 people to come to school sick for us to have to start sending people home. So it's a very small minority people that aren't following instructions, but they have a multiplied impact because essentially you end up with every kid in the room having what would meet the definition of significant exposure. So there's a lot of discretion for the board here. I think it has varied from community to community. We've reported in the past what Tolleson Union and surrounding districts are doing, and that's different from what districts like Dysart are doing and districts in the Southeast Valley. I think Chandler had a sick out last week or this week as well. When you cross the county line and go into Pinal, I think they're in session. Rural communities tend to be either hot or okay, and that's on a community by community basis. So we recommend tonight, some discussion of the board and then determining if we want to try to come back with hybrid models after the holiday next Monday, or if we want to use another date, which would be after President's Day and the board has an opportunity to meet again, or after spring recess, the board would have an opportunity to meet again. But the other thing would be more people would have an opportunity to be vaccinated as well. And I think, we have now on the board a member of the Tolleson Union teaching staff who, could probably weigh in a little bit on what's happening in that district, because in a lot of cases, those older kids are providing some care and supervision for younger kids. Matching up our calendars and some of our actions has always been one of the concerns of the board. So staff is open to questions and recommendations. We'll do our best to answer those. And then we just need to affirm the decision of when to come back with a motion.
All right, I would entertain any comments or questions at this particular time from any of the board members.
Mr. Nielsen, this is Mr. Rader.
Please.
Dr. Freeman, is there a specific vaccination plan for the district? Are we asking teachers to sign up and be vaccinated by a certain date? And just kind of a follow-up to that point, is there anything the board can do? You mentioned that maybe times were available at 4 a.m. in the morning, which just probably isn't feasible. So, I mean, could we create a day off, for example, so that we could encourage teachers to go get vaccinated, even if it was 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning, so that they didn't have to worry about their school duties that day? Because in my mind, this is really determined on how quickly we can get our teachers and staff vaccinated so that they can return to the classroom as safe as possible.
Mr. Rader, this is Kathy. I'm just going to state that I think it's a great question. The concern, you don't really even know how many teachers are willing to take the vaccine. So if you did a survey, you may find only 40% of teachers are comfortable taking the vaccination. And so I like the idea of figuring out a way to get it, but the question becomes, would they even take it if it's available? And I know in us doing, and plus, I think that's the big issue. Will they take it if it's available? If they don't, you're right back to where the conversation is that we're having right now.
Mr. President, Mr. Rader, Ms. Reyes. So we do know in prior surveys of the staff that we have a handful of people who have health concerns that would prohibit them from taking vaccines. What the position we're taking right now is we're not requiring them as a condition of employment. And so they're at this point voluntary. I don't know if that will change in the future. There are some vaccinations that we're required to have as school employees now, DPT and MMR. There are a series of disease prevention vaccinations that we all take. So if COVID would be included in that, the annual flu is a virus that mutates every year. And so there's a new vaccine every year. They don't know if that's going to be the case with COVID or not, because as people are aware, it is mutating. So you may not, be able to get one and get a booster in 7 years or anything like that. It might be, your annual flu shot includes some kind of vaccination for COVID in the future. It's just one part of the mix. We don't know the answer to those questions going forward. It's kind of hard to look down the road. We think there's a lot of staff who would go get vaccinated, some that have some reservations, but the 1A group is already in their second round. And, you know, there's been no reports of anybody really having an adverse reaction. One of the things people are concerned about is whether the vaccination protects you against the disease and the spread, or just the disease. So where you get vaccinated, you may not get really sick. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't necessarily be expelling any virus. Along the lines of an asymptomatic positive. So we would need to continue with masks and all of those kind of things, at least for this year, for the future, if we were able to return in person. I think to Ms. Reyes's question is, there were people that started out with being a little uncomfortable, but as more and more people get vaccinated, I think the level of comfort is going up. I think we'll see more and more people. What we would do is, we have not had a status of an outbreak yet, which is the 2 unrelated incidents in the same site over a certain period of time. But if we had an outbreak, people who weren't vaccinated would probably have to be excluded from the school setting. If they're able to work remotely, we probably could accommodate that. You know, that would need some kids having to go remote because the teacher wasn't vaccinated. You can see that these could present policy issues for the board and for human resources sometime going forward in the future as this settles out. So my appointment is a week from tomorrow. I know a lot of people were trying to get the 18th because it is a day off, and State Farm Stadium will be open. The other pod that's out here, I think, was at Abrazo on McDowell, and that I think right now is open to 1A. We're having a lot of success with staff getting in to a slot at State Farm Stadium. And I think what happened, Mr. Rader, is if you're really anxious and want to get in there and get it right away, you get one of those odd, late at night or early in the morning, just because you want to get in there. I think they had, when I went on, they were doing, they still had 9 and 10 slots open in some of the time slots. And I picked a time that was just convenient for me, that fit around the other work that, I'm doing in Avondale. So I might have been able to get an earlier time, but I wanted it to fit in with the rest of my schedule and thought there wasn't going to be that much difference between a few days here and there. And it's 21 days then till your booster, and a little bit of while for the immunity to kick in. I know it'd be great if the board had that information. I think that's kind of where the conversation was going. Would we have all the teachers immunized by when? And certainly if, we wanted to pick a date to return to hybrid or in-person learning, if we settle on that, we could get that information out to teachers. So for instance, if you said you wanted to wait a month, that is everybody going out and getting their first shot pretty quick here. So 3 weeks later, they can get their booster in time for returning to in-person learning. And we haven't set that expectation, but it doesn't mean we couldn't. I hope that helps with those questions.
Yeah. Dr. Freeman, I know we had employees that advised me today that they got in tomorrow, but they were willing to take a 3 a.m., 3 in the morning shift. So they told me there's a lot of scheduling, but it's at those 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, really challenging times for some people. But otherwise, they said they're about a week and a half out if you want what's going to be considered, prime time. So that's what I've heard.
Yeah, and I don't think that's that bad. Is that 19th, 20th, 21st, basically, you're getting your second shot by President's Day.
Any other comments?
This is Amy, Mr. Reader. I
Go
think for
ahead.
me, I would like to allow our staff, if they would like the boost, if they would like to be immunized, to have the time to get that first one if they have to, and they're going to do the early time or the late time, and then have that second booster as well so that they feel more confident coming in. So I would be more apt to pick one of the later dates here, either after President's Day. Spring recess seems a long time away. But that's kind of my gut feeling right now, is allow our staff to have that time if they feel like they are confident in getting the vaccine.
Thank you, Amy.
Mr. President, this is Sarah.
Go ahead.
I have to agree. Giving the staff that time to, meet with their doctors and, if they need to, and just kind of get all the information they need to and the time to schedule it in and get that done. Working for the high school district, I know the importance and, how beneficial it is for the families when the calendars do align. I know spring break seems like it's really far out. But just given that the data is usually a couple weeks behind and we want to look at giving the staff time to get those vaccinations, I would kind of push more towards, waiting a month or even going towards the spring break, just so that time is given for all of that.
Thank you. In our next meeting, the one on the 26th, which is a special meeting, we have one on the 9th of February, I believe is the next one in February, which give us plenty of time.
Yeah, Mr. President, what we've been doing is basically rewriting this item for each meeting with the next series of intervals that could be possible return to hybrid models. So we can continue to do that depending on the action the board takes. And I think it is important as elected officials representing a constituency to continue to keep the matter before the board, that, we are discussing it every month and taking it very seriously and trying to weigh, what would be all of the opposing considerations.
Thank you.
Mr. Nielsen, this is Kathy.
Go ahead, Kathy.
I would personally like the 19th of January, but I also recognize in dealing with employees, in this case, the teachers, that, that may be challenging. I think if we give them till February, it's an opportunity for them to decide. And after February, they're going to have to make some decisions. Some teachers just don't want to come back, and that's true for employees as well. But I think if time to make some decisions, get vaccinated if they want. At that point, we've done, our due diligence for teachers, and they can feel safer in the classrooms. And at that point, I'm open to saying, we're coming back after President's Day. So if I had my choice, I'd take the 19th, but also in human resources myself and dealing a lot with employees, I understand concerns around their issues and trying to find that balance. So I'm fine with February 16th, 21, coming back after there's communication to teachers to, if they're interested, they talk to the doctor to make sure they get the vaccine, if that's what they want to do, to come back into the classrooms.
Thank you. I may just change the topic here for just a second, and that is there been any work done, Dr. Freeman, about, K through 3 or something like that, coming back at a time in classroom or something like that? I know my kids are up, I've got a set of kids up in Reno, Nevada, and they were out for a while, but the mental health of one of the little 8-year-old kids caused him to take his own life. So you got an 8-year-old up there committing suicide, and it was the point where they encouraged, despite of whatever they had in Reno and Sparks up there, to bring the younger kids back so that they could associate with one another and whatever else. I don't know if that's possible. We've looked many times, reading's an important part of it. And by 3rd grade, if they're not reading on level, whatever it is, there's some concern there. I don't know. if we've looked at any of that, is that a possibility of, looking at that?
Well, it's been discussed a lot about the benefits of being in school and the detriments of being out of school, and I think a lot of people have had that discussion. As far as academic learning goes, the remote and digital media really makes the most sense for adult learners, and as you go down in grade, it gets more and more challenging, probably less and less effective, and also extended use of screen time, blue light, and those kind of things may not be developmentally good for kids. So there's a lot of reasons to try to get them back into school. And I you've mentioned some, I think members of the board are aware as well. People are trying to weigh those things against each other. There's, there's not anything that would prohibit the board from doing just what you talked about. I think kindergarten, obviously, preschool, kindergarten are probably the most vulnerable and have the greatest need for, peer interaction for social development. K-3 kids actually have time required statutorily for them to be in session that's significantly less than the older kids. So you might be able to split them into a morning and afternoon session, much the way you used to do AM, PM kindergarten. The difference would be for teachers, you would be setting up a completely different workday dynamic that wouldn't be the same as the teachers in 4 through 8. But we already have some significant differences in places where we've had teacher attrition, and middle school teachers are sharing 3 grades or maybe multiple preparations. So there are some differences built in, and we would, we probably would want to survey the staff and pull together some information for the board if you wanted to do something like that at the February meeting. I know that the developmental needs and academic needs of the kids don't match up with the health concerns and, I'm just going to say other variables of all of the staff. So where we could say that all of the kids who are 5, well, I don't know how many 5-year-olds we would have left, but 6, 7, and 8-year-olds that are enrolled would probably benefit from more in-person time. Not every one of our teachers who's assigned to work with 6, 7, and 8-year-olds is in a position where they don't have other comorbidities, vulnerabilities, or other people in their home who might also be vulnerable, who they live with and care for. So that, while that lines up nicely for kids, it may not line up nicely for staff. And there's 2 ways to do that, which is to kind of flex the kids into where we have staff. The other would be to flex the staff to where we have kids. The issue with that for a lot of people would be changing people's teachers in February or March after they've been working together for a number of months. And so when we've asked people before, the majority of them said they'd rather stay with their teacher and compromise their model than change their teacher to get the model they want. And that's not 100%, but I'm thinking it was like 2/3 to 1/3 the last time we did that survey. We can certainly look into that, and if that's a direction the board wants to go. There is just so much judgment involved in this decision, and a little bit of a gut check and intuition more than there is solid data to guide you.
Thank you. That kind of answers my question. I'll entertain a motion. I kind of like what Kathy has said. Let's maybe put it off till middle of February. And Dr. Freeman, you could maybe look and see if there is some way that maybe we could look at those little kids. And if it means they're not going to get their teacher and whatever it is, of course, that's not what we want to do. But if it seems, logical and feasible that we could get some of these kids back in here and the numbers are down and the teachers have been vaccinated, well, then we can look at it. And I think that's what we need to do by next meeting. But
yeah, we collected some of that data in October, but I think, probably things have moved around a little since then.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. President, may I make just one quick comment, please?
Yes.
No, thank you very much. I think this is a great discussion. I absolutely agree with allowing until February 16th for our staff to get both sets of vaccinations. I would just reiterate, and this is based on large part by the governor's comments as well. I think that there's going to be an expectation that's probably forced sooner than later that we're back in school in a full capacity. So if there's anything we can do at the district level to help facilitate teachers getting that vaccination, I hope administration will explore those options.
Thank you.
We did discuss some incentives, but so we may bring that back to you.
Yeah, they're all going to get one of those skull head, whatever those things that the other kid got here today.
They must be good. I mean, it sounds really cool.
Mr.
Okay.
Nielsen, if it's okay, I'll make a motion.
Please go ahead.
I'll move the governing board approve February 16th, 21 after President's Day as the start date for return to in-person instruction with a modified Model B plan for grade levels or programs deemed appropriate for the level of COVID metrics in the state or county or those released to the district.
Thank you, Kathy. Do we have a second?
I'll second. This is
Thank you,
Mr. Rader.
Mr.
Ada?
Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashanek.
Aye.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the discussion and the information, the questions there, and the concern that we all have for our teachers and staff. All right. Mr. French, are you out there somewhere?
I am here. Thank you, President Nielsen. I appreciate your guys' time this evening. This appears on the last presentation you're going to have. But this evening, I would like to share some of the work the district's been doing in monitoring the budget during FY21 and forecasting into fiscal year 2022. Some of the factors that we are monitoring and considering are the enrollment changes that we've seen in fiscal year 21. We've also been reviewing the COVID relief funds available to us both through local and federal sources and how we can use those funds to supplement our M&O budget. I will summarize those for you here tonight. The district has been able to move expenditures such as salaries and supplies into these funds to relieve the stress on our M&O budget from the average daily membership decline. I'd also like to take the opportunity to take a look at the information we currently have about the budget for the fiscal 22 school year. Here is a review of the past 10 years of average daily membership along with current year updates. The fiscal year 21 percentage change is an estimated number since we are in school currently, but it is a significant change from fiscal year 20. You will see only one other year other than fiscal year 21 with a decline. This was fiscal year 16, which was the end of the 200-day calendar. As a comparison, fiscal year 10 is just outside of the last 10 years of data, but Littleton saw a decline of 3% during the mortgage crisis. When Ms. Kinder proposed the adopted fiscal 21 budget, an approximate 5% decline of enrollment was estimated and attributed to charter encroachment. At that time, the full impact of COVID into the future school year was unforeseen. This combination of factors has seen Littleton's unweighted ADM drop by an approximated 10%.
At this time, we are moving forward assuming this is a one-time enrollment decline and it will not spill into fiscal year 22. I'd like to give a brief description of each of the COVID relief funds that affected the fiscal year 21 budget and will affect the carry forward going into fiscal year 22. The first COVID relief fund is ESSER, or the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund. This was developed as part of the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Securities, better known as CARES Act, the $2 trillion relief package passed by Congress. $277 million went to K-12 education in the state of Arizona, and it was allocated based on the district's Title I allocation. The second fund that we had access to was through the Department of Emergency and Military Affairs, who worked in conjunction with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, allowing state and local governments to apply for reimbursement of COVID-19 related emergency response and protective measures to assist in recouping disaster-related costs. As we worked through this reimbursement request, we quickly realized the program was limited in scope and would not be a significant funding source for the district. The third item here is the Enrollment Stability Grant Program that was developed by the governor's office to help mitigate the economic impacts of COVID-19 and provide financial stability to school districts in fiscal year 21. The program allocated $370 million to Arizona's districts and charters and was designed to provide districts with a one-time formula based on the greater of 105% of the district's 2020-2021 40th day weighted average daily membership, or 98% of actual 2019-2020 weighted average daily membership. This program unfortunately fell short of its promise and will not allow Littleton to meet the 98% of fiscal year 20 ADM target. We do not currently have information suggesting the governor's office will allocate any additional funds to this fund. I would also like to speak briefly on the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, or also known as GEAR, designed to assist high-needs schools. Many districts across Phoenix receive these funds because of their combination of free and reduced lunch percentage and letter grades. Littleton may have been eligible based on funds based on free and reduced lunch, but our higher school letter grades disqualified the district in receiving these funds. The available funding for this fund was $69 million, of which $20 million was to bring in extra support for high-need schools. Next slide, Sue. In this slide, we are showing you the amount of COVID relief assistance received by the district. Just a note that approximately $929,000 of the ESG funds were used in fiscal year 20, as the grant was available in both fiscal years. The use of these funds in fiscal year 20 is what accounted for an increase in the carry forward for the 2020-21 fiscal year. You can see a dollar amount in parentheses underneath the 2.6 million there, though that is 1.3 million, and that is what the allocation that the governor's office came up short in its promise to hold districts harmless to 98%. That was Littleton's share. In fact, there was an approximate $253 million gap based on available funding statewide. If you look at the 3.6 million in parentheses under ESSER, this are potentially new dollars or additional dollars we will touch on further on in the presentation. So the total amount of COVID relief funds that the district has received to date is $3,652,408. What I'd like to do now is look at this year's projected M&O budget. In December, I presented our revised budget revision number 1 for the board's approval. The M&O budget for this revision increased slightly from $38,664,750 to $38,805,000 $47,028 due to the $929,000 of federal assistance we just spoke of, thus increasing the carry forward into fiscal year 21. I've also reviewed the spending year to date of the district and project expenditures to be $36,702,097. We will bring another statutory budget revision to the board in May. We expect to revise the budget down by approximately $850,000 due to the fact that the state is only funding distance learning at 95% of the base level. This adjustment was not made in December due to the fact that ADE, the Arizona Department of Education, had not provided the district with a vehicle to make the adjustment on the budget forms. Looking at these different factors and with all else constant, we anticipate a carry forward into fiscal year 22 of roughly $1,295,000. In this slide, I would like to point out that even though we are estimating M&O expenditures to be approximately 36.7 million for fiscal year 21, we spent an additional 2.7 million in fiscal year 21 from our COVID relief funds, bringing the fiscal year 2021 projected expenditures to $39,425,505. Now what I'd like to do is take a little bit of a peek into fiscal year 22 and some of the budget assumptions that we are making for that fiscal year. So we are looking at minimal utility changes, minimal insurance changes, which include property and liability and health insurance, minimal ADM changes. We are looking to provide staffing levels adjusted to our ADM. We are assuming that COVID relief will continue, which we'll talk about briefly, and that grants continue at the same level to support critical programs. So this is essentially what we know going into fiscal year 22. The GLBC staff are estimated that the inflation increase for the fiscal year 22 base level will be approximately 1%, which equates to approximately $45 to $46 per weighted ADM in the funding formula. This will add approximately $320,000 to next year's budget. News is also coming out about the Coronavirus Response and Relief Supplemental Appropriations Act of 2021 passed by Congress on December 27th of 2020. There should be some more assistance to districts as part of the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund 2, or what they're going to call ESSER 2. These funds would be available to use, and it's being reported that it's going to be approximately 4 times larger than our initial ESSER allocation. So that's where the $3.6 million came from a couple slides before. These funds would be available to be used by the district to offset expenses caused by or affected because of COVID. These funds will remain available for obligation through fiscal year 23 or until the district exhausts the funds. We will have additional information to share with the board when it becomes available. And then for my final slide, we just want to say more to come. I mean, there's going to be a lot of conversations between us and the board going forward about these items. I think Dr. Freeman alluded to that. But this presentation was just one piece of the entire picture being analyzed at Littleton. Future meetings this year, the district will bring recommendations and proposals for changes to teacher staffing, support staffing, admin staffing. We'll discuss the impacts of COVID and the ESSER 2 funds, and a potential bond proposal for a November election. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. French, any members of the board have any questions or comment for French at this time? Evidently, there's a lot to keep track of, and we appreciate you taking track of it and putting it in such a simple manner that we can understand it.
I was hoping it was going to be simple.
Thank you. Well, if there's no questions, comments on that, there's no need for any action to be taken on that. That was for information. That's the last item that I have on our agenda for tonight. Oh, I'm getting there. Hang on. We have one more item here. That is an adjournment. Can I have a motion from one of the members there for adjournment for tonight?
This is Kathy. I'll move that we adjourn at 8:15.
Thank you,
John.
Kathy.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashanet.
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you so very much for your participation, your input, and your help tonight.